I am of the firm belief that when it comes to EDs, it is similar to being an addict. You don't have to necessarily work a 12-step program, but you have to work every day and make the choice every day to remain in recovery. And I am struggling with that choice right now. Hi, hello, and welcome back to a podcast where I like to talk about rediscovering yourself in your 30s, being a chaotic, crazy cat mom, life in the US right now, and everything in between. You know it, you love it. Welcome back to Chaos and Fuckery. I still don't know what that intro is going to be. The main component of the intro that is staying is rediscovering life in your 30s, because that is really just me right now. I am reevaluating everything and anything about my life, and I should have started this in my later 20s, not in my early 30s, but sometimes things just happen, and I don't need to wear these. I am not communicating or streaming where I need game audio. See? Chaos already. It's not a cat today. Today it's just me, myself, and I. But today's topic is another one that I've wanted to talk about from a couple different angles for a while now. I didn't really know how to say it because publicly most of my content surrounds being a fitness content creator, a gaming fitness content creator, right? I do gaming content, I do fitness content, I do gaming fitness content mixed together, aside from this podcast. And that is normally a very good thing. However, when it comes to talking about this topic, it's very hard to toe the line of this topic as a person in the fitness space on the professional end rather than just on the influencer end, because you have to be careful about what you say about this. Not only because a lot of algorithms are going to start throwing red flags all over you when you start talking about these kinds of things, also because people are going to jab at you in any way humanly possible, no matter what body you're in. And the thing I want to talk about, if you haven't caught on, is skinny talk, the pro-Anna content that's making its way back into the world, the Tumblr era style skinny, and the shift away from strong back to skinny. Because I have multiple perspectives. I have a perspective as a fitness person looking at the fitness industry. I have the perspective as someone who did live in the Tumblr era and live through an ED. And I have the perspective of someone that grew up in a sport that EDs run rampant even still to this day. Despite the fact that multiple people talk about it now, body shaming, perfectionism with your body is just a thing that comes with being a dancer and gymnast. Unfortunately, I also grew up in a family that I would say worse than almond mom, but I guess today's description would be almond mom. I grew up with an almond mom. I grew up with an almond grandma. Still to this day, they get into random shit like Optavia and the supplements that make no sense, and they won't listen to anybody when it comes to nutrition advice and things like that. So, and it's not even that they don't listen, it's just that they convince themselves that they can't do it and they're always full and food is not a thing. When I say this, people are going to come in my comments and be like, it doesn't look like it, put down the fries, blah, blah, blah. All those stupid comments that you always get if you're in a not perfectly fit body or a not perfectly skinny body, especially as a female. Food is a nuisance to me. And I think some of that comes from ADHD, truthfully, because I never know what I want. Flavors don't really taste like flavors most of the time. And usually when I'm craving something, it's usually something sweet, and my brain will not stop obsessing over it until I figure out what that taste is. But the problem is I never actually know what it is. And so when it comes to food is just a nuisance to me. I don't like cooking, so that doesn't help. But I also just don't generally know what I want, and then I will go eat something and be like, ugh. And a lot of people like to make random commentary like, you can't overeat fruit. Hi, hello, a person that can definitely overeat fruit. I do not have palate fatigue when it comes to fruit. Or vegetables, really, but I just tend to have more fruit on hand. I used to get yelled at as a kid for eating too much fruit, and that definitely created the relationship I have with food today, but also the relationship I have with fitness and exercise, the things that I grew up in. Deconstructing all of that is impossibly difficult in a world pre-social media, because I grew up in all of this thickness, the almond mom concept, before TikTok, before Instagram Reels, before Instagram, really. And I didn't have to deal with anonymous accounts trolling me all the time when I would try to figure out new things in life or when I was shifting through different weights throughout my life. I had to deal with bully dance teachers telling me I was overweight and stubborn and everything else that came with them. But I didn't have to deal with anonymous trolls on the internet. And realistically, kids shouldn't be dealing with that because they shouldn't be on the internet. However, even as young adults, 16, and yes, I know 16 is still a minor, still a kid, but 16 to, 22, 23, you still really struggle with that self-worth, the body image and all of that. At an age that being on social media is appropriate, you would still have to deal with that in today's day and age. And dealing with it back then was really, really difficult for me. Because I was already of the mindset that food was kind of a nuisance, I was not driven by food at all. I cannot remember a time in my life where food was a drive for me. I'm not really a foodie. There are some times I'm like, oh, that sounds really, really good. And I like to go to food festivals and things like that. But even then, I'm trying small dishes. I'm not eating a ton. Honestly, at food festivals, and this has a proponent into the body I'm in today, I like to try drinks more than I like to try food, which gets me into trouble, but that's the reality. I would much rather go try, 12 beers around the world than I would 12 dishes of food. Food does not really motivate me unless it's a few select things, and those few select things are not the healthiest, to say the least. But even as a kid, I don't remember eating breakfast. There is not a time in my life that I have a distinct memory of eating breakfast. Some of that I think is due to the fact that my mom and I'm allergic to dairy and my mom's allergic to eggs, so a lot of breakfast foods were kind of off the table in my household, especially when I was younger. And my now dairy, I don't really know what to call it. It's always been called an allergy in my life, but I'm not fully, projectile vomiting, anaphylaxis or anything like that anymore. I used to be when I was younger, but sensitivity ebbs and flows. There are certain things that I just won't touch because of that. However, because of that, it created a mindset in my life where food was a nuisance. I didn't like to cook, and so when I was being left alone a lot as a young teen, I was either popping things in a microwave or not eating at all. And I think I got into a situation where my friends were taking me, or my friends' parents were taking me home from dance a lot and things like that. I think there was a situation where they understood that if I went home without food on the way home, I wasn't going to eat. And so they would constantly stop to get us food on the way home so that they knew I ate. I genuinely believe that that was a thought in their minds because of what I went through with my ED and everything else, but I think it started before I really actively was not eating purposely, when I just wasn't motivated by food. It was not something I ever needed or wanted. I would go entire days at a dance studio dancing all day without food because, I forgot my money or whatever it was. Just because it didn't bother me. And that leads me into today's day and age. It is a different world dealing with eating disorders when you are on social media, both as a content creator and just a general consumer. As a fitness person who knows better and does better every day, I am struggling right now with the social media, and it's not just social media consumption, because I've limited my consumption pretty heavily as of late, just because I have other things I want to do with my life. I post something, I give a quick tip that's helped me. But because I am in a phase right now where I have to force myself to eat, I am not in a body that can train appropriately, and I don't fit the stereotype of a personal trainer. And I know this. So I really don't need thousands of people, and thousands is way hyperbole. But point being is, I don't need people coming in my comments all the time saying I don't look like I have the knowledge to do the things that I do. Because at the end of the day, personal training is a test. It is not a body composition test. It is any standardized test that you would take in high school. That's what the CPT is. But also, I got my CPT when I was not in my final form by any stretch of the imagination, but in better form than I am now. I also know this when I first started talking about coaching and things like that. And I had said back then when I first got my CPT that I wanted to get my cert and get in a body that's worth marketing, if you will, before I started coaching, but had someone encourage me to coach earlier than that. And yes, having diversified body shapes and sizes in the personal training space is a good thing. I just know, me personally, if I could show a massive transformation, I'm gonna have more clients coming in my door. So it is a very hard mental thing knowing that I want to build this business that I'm in. And I'm going to talk about it because if I do have a big transformation this year, the unfortunate side is I'm going to talk about this now, and now I'm going to probably put a lot of questionable thoughts on my transformation if this does happen. It is hard for me to not do extreme things to get to that transformation place to market my brain, because my coaching is where I thrive. My coaching is where I'd love to be. But I currently, as an online coach, can't market appropriately if people are constantly questioning my ability to coach. And that comes with the body side. So when you're in that constant debacle of wanting to get out of corporate life and wanting to build a business and wanting to help more people, and yet not being in the body that typically would market those kinds of things, it turns on that ED trigger almost instantaneously. Because how I ended up deep down being best friends with Anna, if you will, was a dance teacher telling me that I couldn't be with my friends because of the body I was in. So wanting something so bad to just feel normal or to just be a part of something that you want to be a part of is what triggered it originally. And now I'm going through it again. And yes, I have the mental capacity to recognize I'm going through it again right now. It takes everything in me not to do full days, 24 plus hours of fasting, to not train on days that I've fasted and actually fuel myself like I'm supposed to. And there's a reason why with a lot of my clients, I also go through if you have a lot of food noise and you're stressing and have anxiety over tracking, we need to move away from it. If that is something you are stressing about, we need to find another alternative. And I am pro fasting and pro OMAD and things like that in the right situation. If I hired a coach right now and they, knowing my history, told me to do OMAD and fasting, it would be because I was obsessing over numbers with a tracking app. It would be to break that cycle of obsessing with the numbers. And a lot of people will use that tactic. However, it's also a bad idea with someone with my history, for instance, to encourage that, because then it encourages them to go to more extreme versions where I'm not just doing a 24-hour fast, I'm fasting for 48 plus hours, especially with people like me who don't hit that nauseous point to where you have to eat until, 48 plus hours. And so not only am I struggling with it, not relapsing and going back to that because I want to be able to market my knowledge and help other people in a way that doesn't bring thousands of people to my comments if I get bigger. And I'm also struggling with it from a social media consumption, right? All of the people you see are of that Tumblr era. They're obscenely skinny. And then you have people like Skinny Talk and Pilates girls that are screaming about instructors being overweight and that your body is your business card in personal training, and these rhetorics that is pro let me be sickly looking skinny over anything else, over life quality, over sleep quality, over energy, over hormones, over whatever. Also, we don't want to look too bulky in the female space, which as someone who has always been bulky, my legs specifically, I'm so tired of we don't want to be too bulky. You might not. I, however, can't do anything about it. Even in my previous ED phase, my legs were still like muscly tree trunks. And that's, talking about this kind of stuff where I'm struggling with it. I know a lot of other people are as well. It is hard. I want people to be healthy. And I think the turn that we had a few years ago towards strong encouraged people to get healthy rather than so sickly skinny because you're not focused on being a size 0. And then we went a little too far where a lot of people thought that they could just be bodybuilders. And yes, bodybuilding is a real sport. Powerlifting is a real sport. If that is something you want to do, but a lot of people would train for a bodybuilding competition as a means of losing weight. Similar to how people in some eras have signed up for marathons as a way to motivate themselves to exercise. That is not the way to do things consistently. And that is part of the problem. Also, the bodybuilding era or the strong muscle mommy era, I think also swung into this weird protein obsessed society we have now. Similar to low fat and low carb that we've seen in the past, or keto era or carnivore era. This protein obsessed era is something. And I would like to preface, I'm not hating on protein because it is important, but how obsessive people have gotten with it, the crazy amount of products, right? At the same time, people are talking about eat more whole foods, eat more whole foods. They're also talking about, protein Pop-Tarts. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there because realistically, whey protein powder is processed food. It is an ultra, I don't know if it's considered ultra processed, but at minimum it's processed. A lot of your groceries are processed, but in the standard, junk food processing term, that is whey powder. It may be healthier for you in some cases. It also might not be in others. So the obsession with protein and not getting it purely from whole sources, but also supplementing a lot to get there, I would rather see someone be a little bit under on whole foods than significantly over with half of it being from supplements. But that conversation's not being had right now in the protein space. And then you've got everybody screaming about this food pyramid, and that's not the issue in the nutrition space right now, in my opinion. Yes, we do need to work on the obesity side of life, 100%. That is a problem, but also that is swinging again towards being friends with Anna. And I don't want to see a Beachbody era come back. I like the fact that they're going out of business and that they're no longer an MLM. And I like that fact. And don't get me wrong, some of the workouts for Beachbody, if you know what you're doing, are decently put together. They'll definitely get you to where you want to go, but that's because 90% of them are just, cardio with body weight movement. The nutrition programs need to be thrown in the trash. All of Autumn Calabrese's nonsense absolutely needs to be thrown in the trash. Thrown away. However, I'm struggling. And I'm going to fully admit that. A lot of fitness coaches won't admit, they'll tell their history, right? I had this ED 20 years ago. Mine was over a decade ago. I am of the firm belief that when it comes to EDs, it is similar to being an addict. You don't have to necessarily work a 12-step program, but you have to work every day and make the choice every day to remain in recovery. And I am struggling with that choice right now because society wants me to be different, but also because I know being different will help sell my business. And that is a weird mental shift that I was not expecting from this journey when I started it, because I started it during a focus on strong, focus on muscle mommy era. And that's not where we're at right now. I am struggling with being online as a creator in the fitness space, not only because I don't want to sell and be sold to, but because you can't win. In the fitness industry, you can't win. There is no right and wrong way to do a fitness journey realistically. I mean, there's no right way. There's definitely a couple wrong ways, but there's no one singular right way. And yet everyone thinks they know everything and that they're completely 100% correct, which is why rage baity content like hot takes works in the fitness industry. Really, in any industry. I feel like it is difficult to eat again. It is difficult to force myself to eat. It is difficult to not spend all day. Part of the reason I won't build a full stand-up desk is because it is very, very difficult for me to not spend all day walking on my walk pad. I did not leave my house yesterday and had over 15,000 steps and doubled my calorie ring. And all I ate was probably, if I did quick math, 1,000 calories. And that was me forcing myself to eat because I ate a breakfast yogurt granola bowl. I ate chicken melts, and then I ate one of my KFC bowls. My KFC bowls are probably about 500 calories a piece, if I had to guess, because it's all homemade. So the hefty thing is the breading on the chicken, really. Because I don't even make my potatoes with a lot of dairy. And a 1-pound bag of mini potatoes gave me 4 containers. Like, I made a week worth of KFC bowls out of a 1-pound bag of potatoes. And I recognize that that is significantly not good. But I genuinely can't force myself to eat anymore. And I've spent twice a day in the sauna every day since I got it for Christmas, pretty much. At least once a day, if not twice a day. I wanted to talk about it because I also want to say I'm struggling. And I know other people are probably struggling to maintain, their love. Especially ones who kind of just recognize they had a problem later. No one ever really forced them to deal with said problem. Because when I was originally in the thick of it, I was 14, and I went probably 2 years. No one said anything. Literally no one said a damn thing. I was rail thin. I had a dress made in June or July, and by October for homecoming, I had to take it in, I think 3 inches on each side, so 6 in total, in my chest to keep it up because it was strapless. I had issues, and no one said a thing. And I think that also is a bit why I'm probably struggling a little bit more now than I have in the past. Despite this stuff always existing on social media, when I don't have other people watching me, I will do extreme things. A lot of it is not wanting to deal with questions that will stop me from doing it. If my husband's home, he's gonna wonder when was the last time I ate eventually. And I don't do it on purpose. I don't do it for attention. I don't do it because I don't want people to ask the question. I do it because I feel some sort of need to do it to fit in. And that's a deep mental thing that even being in therapy that I've never really been able to crack. I think I cracked it a little bit in the last episode with the LDS thing. Standing out was a bad thing growing up. Being different, being weird, being, the one with tattoos, being whatever. That got me made fun of a lot. And I think even up through college, that was the case as well. I was the party girl, the drunk, because I was fucked up mentally back then. Anyways, I have never really dealt with why it was so necessary for me to fit in. I don't feel I need to as much now, but there's a certain amount of being a content creator, I guess, that makes you want to be liked. But also there's a certain amount of being in the fitness industry of wanting to look like everybody else. Because as a trainer in a bigger body, if you go up next to someone who has 6-pack abs, you're not winning that client 9 times out of 10. Which is absurd because it has nothing to do with the knowledge, the research, the time spent looking at studies, the certifications each of us get individually. Your body size has nothing to do with that. But I understand from a psychological perspective why that is. And I think that's part of the reason over the last few years that I've had my certs and tried to build the business and things like that, I've always fallen off, is because if I never actually hit my transformation, I always have something to blame for why my business wasn't successful. I always have the fear of being attacked online for my body as a reason to not post content. I have, 1,000,003 things that can cause not to post things. And it's excuses after excuses after excuses. And this is like therapy hour. Me diving into why I got into an ED in the first place and why I'm struggling. And it's hard because I can't. And this is legitimately not an excuse. If I want to remain in recovery, I can't do macro and calorie tracking. That is just another added layer of I am obsessed that I don't want to get into. Because I've seen both versions of it. I've seen being best friends with Anna, and I've seen being orthorexic as well. I learned a lot about health and fitness, and I got really into Beachbody, and that's where the orthorexic side came in. And I have to battle both of those things. I have to battle not wanting to eat, not being motivated by food, not really, and I do as I say, not as I do, I guess, right? I know a lot of my clients, I've had these conversations with them. I have to battle also not wanting to only focus on things like the scale and measurements and photos and pants and things like that. Focusing on energy. I can't focus on non-scale. My brain does not function that way. And I have tried so many times, time and time again, to make those types of things the things that I focus on so that I don't end up down the ED rabbit hole again. And it works for a little while, and then it stops working when I stop seeing some of the progress in the things that I care about, the measurable things. And then I consider, I have yet to actually go down that pipeline. I am still very much so fighting it, going down the ED pipeline again, where I'm overtraining, under eating, and just keep going through that till I get where I want. It is a mental fight every day. The fitness industry isn't helping, but like at the same time, I know there are other people like me in the fitness industry, so giving up on the business is just, I want to just create content. This is the funny thing about me, is a lot of fitness coaches I've met are not content creators. They don't like the content. They want to just throw out slop and use AI for their content, and that's not me. I like creating content. I like being a creator. I like making silly videos. I like, challenging myself to do these stupid challenges like what I'm doing with fucking stream right now. Or I'm trying to see if I can beat the KH Rainbow before I hit 1,000 squats. But when is too much? That is a question I'm still asking. But also, when do I need to step away from the internet as a whole for the betterment of not ending up in an ED again? And I don't think I could step away. I spend too much time on YouTube. I just do. I don't know. I wanted to talk about it because of what you're seeing in this conversation. My family was the starting point for why I thought EDs were okay. Constantly removing food groups from their lives, constantly eating obscene things like 500 to 800 calories a day, constantly only having 100-calorie packs in the house, and only having whole wheat 100-calorie Hot Pockets and yelling at me if I had more than one. Only, leaving foods that I wouldn't eat as dinners so that I either had to cook at 10 o'clock at night when I got home or choose to just go to bed. Those are the things that led to the ED and the final snapping point of my dance teacher telling me that I was too fat to have fun with my friends while I was in the middle of puberty. Anyways, I then drank myself into the body that I was in college. It wasn't food. And I know a lot of people will be like, you're bullshitting. You used to eat a lot of junk food. That's how you got fat. No, I really didn't. I was a broke college student. I didn't have money to go eat a bunch of junk food. I was lucky if I had money, like I had groceries most days. And I say broke college, I was better off than a lot of people. But I was still a broke college student that couldn't afford to go, to Whole Foods or whatever. And I was in a small college town as well, where there was not really, anyways. I had more alcohol than I did food on any given day, usually. 7-Eleven and pizza came into play a lot, which probably not the best food choices, but my biggest issue was alcohol. And this was in a era pre a lot of zero sodas. I like sodas like Dr. Pepper and Mountain Dew that didn't have good diet options, and zero soda like Coke Zero, I don't even think was as found in public places as it is now. And Pepsi definitely didn't have their zeros. So those were, and energy drinks. There wasn't Alani's, and there wasn't, I think maybe there was Monster Zero back then. I think Rockstar had a zero, but those were things that I liked. And so I drank all around, both in alcohol and in beverages, a lot of my calories that ended me in a bigger body in college. It wasn't food. And it wasn't even lack of activity either, because I walked everywhere. I lived a mile from school and I didn't want to pay for parking. So I would walk most days, unless it was raining or something. I would walk. And even then, I would park at like the back side of school and walk all around from building to building. I would only go to my car like once. So food has always been kind of a problem in my life. I'm not motivated by it, so eating is difficult. And then on top of that, knowing I have an ED forces me to eat when I don't want to, which also creates a bunch of hunger cue issues and knowing when I'm hungry and everything else. I've worked on that significantly. That was part of the reason I got my fitness certifications in the first place, was to learn more and understand all of these things that would help me get where I wanted to go in the right way. But now skinny talk and Pilates and that's not a hate on Pilates. Pilates, the exercise, like the group class, whatever. If that's what you like to do, that's what you like to do. It's the Pilates culture online on the internet, like TikTok, that have ruined Pilates. It's not. I used to do bear yoga and stuff like that. Like that stuff is fun and fine. It's the way it's being portrayed on the internet as, the whole a donut doesn't taste as good as skinny feels kind of bullshit. It's not just about unhealthy foods. At least for some people like me, it's not. It was about the culture. It was about having not eaten in 3 days and then being told, don't eat a box of strawberries. And mind you, it wasn't like the Costco size boxes either back then. Point being is I always got yelled at for eating too much, even when I was going 2 or 3 days without eating. So not every person with an ED looks like they have one. Not every person who is in recovery never struggles with it again. And the internet needs to learn from its history, I guess. I don't know. I can imagine a lot of people are like me and are struggling with this pro Anna content coming back and celebrities being real thin and no one talking about their training routines and their splits and everything else out anymore. Everyone's talking about not being bulky and cardio again and whatever. I don't know. I'm just annoyed with the idea of being in the fitness industry nowadays. I love helping people, but I don't love the industry. And I could go off on a completely different side tangent on that one, but I think I'll save that for a different episode in the future of the fitness industry is fucked kind of situation. Because I think we are heading into a world where fitness might be more, I don't want to say militarized, because fitness has always been a big part of the military, but I'm saying more your regular everyday fitness influencers or things are going to be militant about the way they handle their communication, the way they handle clients, the way they handle firing clients, and prices of assistance like personal training and nutrition are going to see a spike for no reason other than they can because they think they're a necessary component to the world. And I recognize that I'm not necessary. Half of what I do is on Google. However, that human connection thing is important to a lot of people when it comes to fitness. Being able to have someone check in on them, being able to have the guidance and encouragement is important. And then some people like to be screamed at. I unfortunately am one of those people that's motivated when people tell me I can't do something. Unfortunately, that doesn't really work with fitness for me though. Competition works with fitness for me, which is also a bad motivator in the fitness space. I don't know. I just kind of wanted to rant about how I'm struggling with this content. I'm struggling with the fact that I get comments like that and then have to turn around and make more videos and have more people say it and have it constantly drilled into my head that even though I have been fighting this battle of staying in recovery for close to a decade, and to some extent, my body has ended up in a worse off place because of it. And I'm working actively every day to look visibly better because physically I'm fine, but visibly, whatever. It's just a weird, I don't know. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I'm struggling with remaining in a world where I eat every day. And I don't mean that from a you should send someone out to check on me perspective. I just mean eating is not a priority. And I don't like that mindset is stuck in my head because It is a priority to build muscle. It is a priority to build my metabolism. It is a priority for X, Y, and Z things in my fitness space. Knowing better is doing better. But mentally, I still don't know how to deal with that because I don't want to force myself to eat when I'm not hungry. But at the same time, I kind of need to force myself to eat when I'm not hungry because otherwise I will never eat ever. And then, like with hydration, a lot of people, scream about hydration, but however, if I stay fully hydrated, there is a likelihood that I also don't, or, drink the amount of caffeine that I require. And it was why I had to get off my ADHD meds, was because I recognized that the appetite suppressant of that particular stimulant was so strong in me that I would go an extra day without ever noticing that I forgot to eat. And that was wild to experience again because I also loved it. It was almost like, an addict taking a hit of their drug of choice. I loved feeling like I didn't have to eat. I loved forgetting that food existed. I loved just being able to focus and zone in and hyper focus like I have in the past on things that I actually enjoyed on just about anything. Wasn't perfect. There were still some things I avoided doing, but you get the point. I loved the feeling of being medicated for my ADHD, but I also had to sit back and recognize that I also loved the feeling of being able to go longer days without consuming food and do things like work out alongside it. I had to come up with a workout plan, and this is part of the reason why I am as deconditioned as I am right now, because I tried being on meds and I had to come up with a plan that did not have me training on days that I took my stimulants because I knew that would be bad. Have you experienced this? Are you, someone who has dealt with an ED before? Are you struggling right now with this media coverage, or is this just a me thing and I really need to work on it significantly? I mean, obviously I need to work on it. That's no question, but is anyone else struggling with this? Even if you've been in recovery for, a decade or more, is it a struggle to see all the content again and feel like, why did I bother to get better? I'm not seeing any benefits of it. I'm also only seeing the consequences of it because that's how I feel right now. And I know that's a mental thing. I know that's not reality. Like, I understand the therapizing of it, and that's the problem I have, is knowing it and then actively choosing to ignore it, or just the world I live in. I wish I wasn't like this. I wish I hadn't spent all day at Epic Universe where I did something like 25,000 steps and all I had all day was alcohol and like a few snack bites. I should not have done that, but I did because food was not something on my mind. And that's unfortunate because Epic Universe does have some good food. That is some food that does motivate my brain. But I was just so busy, doing roller coasters with a teenager and everything. My brain said, nah, food, whatever. And I wasn't even really hungry the next morning when we did breakfast. It just happened to be that we were going to a breakfast that forced me to eat. Otherwise, I probably would have just got coffee and moved on with my life. I wish I wasn't struggling with this. I wish I wasn't fighting this for, the people in my life, because me being on the edge of relapsing this recovery hurts other people if I do. Other people have to deal with the mess that it's not just me, because they have to deal with me coming off of that, me, cycling back into potentially binging. It is more than me that it impacts, and I hate that. I hate that this is still something that plagues me. I hate that I can't just be in, work out and eat healthy and be the typical fitness influencer, because there are things in this space that still trigger me. I hate that. I hate that I've been working on and off on, this transformation for my business for 4 years now? But every time I actually start to make progress, this starts creeping up in my head again of, let's just go, let's do OMAD again. Let's do fasting again. Let's do escalate it. I'm angry. I'm angry that, the industry has pushed that button on me, not on me, because it's obviously always my choice and what I consume is in my control, and I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just angry at myself. I'm angry that this kind of content is coming back for people who struggle like me. I'm angry that I come up with stupid challenges like 1,000 squats versus my randomizer, and I might, end up overtraining my legs. I'm actually surprised my legs feel pretty decent today after doing 130 squats on fucking, they were not full range of motion squats. Point being, I'm angry. I'm struggling a lot with seeing all of this pro skinny talk content again, and I don't even purposely consume it. I wish it wasn't considered disordered or an eating disorder, because I'd want to be an example for my clients and not be that jackass. I wish this wasn't considered a problem purely so that I could go off and do it. Not because I know, like, because it's healthy or because I think it's stupid that it's considered, so that I didn't have to feel guilty about it. Because I know it's bad for me and all involved to go down that pipeline again. I literally do feel like I'm battling an addiction with this, because I have grown up in a family that is so obsessed, and still is, with scale and being tiny. And like I said in the other episode, they were obsessed with how big my chest was. Even when I was tiny, they were obsessed with like, everyone in my entire life has been obsessed with numbers surrounding my body and my size and what I do to exercise, what I eat, what I don't. I am still struggling at 30 fucking, it's obscene. At 30 fucking years old, I'm still struggling with this. And I wish I wasn't. I wish that I had a better family that didn't, that taught real things when I was younger, that I know now, obviously, because of my certs, so that I didn't feel that constant nagging in my head of a handful of blackberries in my yogurt is too much, or that I need to weigh everything. I haven't replaced the battery in my scale, because I tried to do the whole weigh calorie checking thing at one point, again, when I was really trying to dial in, and I got obsessed with, I would weigh out ridiculous things that didn't matter at the end of the day, because obviously I know a lot of people misjudge how many calories they're eating and blah blah blah. When I tell you the shit I weighed out when I tried the weighing thing, my husband literally questioned why I was doing it. And that was what got me to stop. He was questioning why I was doing what I was doing. And I stopped it, because I realized what he was really questioning. And I'm glad he questions those things, because it does get me to stop and see, fuck, I'm starting it again. I wouldn't be like this. I don't get so obsessive once I'm down to where I want to be, and I can fit into the fun clothes I want to fit into and things like that. I do stop. I did notice that last time. I do stop. I maintain at not so healthy level, obviously, but I don't obsessively go multiple days when I get to where I want to. And like I said, I haven't done that in over a decade, but I'm struggling not to do it right now. I'm fed up with trying to do things the right way. I'm fed up, and I don't want to use medications and things like that, partially just because I don't like to. But also, I don't want to hear everyone say, even if I'm open and honest about it, that I cheated. You do you. I have no judgment on that. Like, I understand people genuinely do need it. But I'm tired. I want to cut, like, super obnoxiously for a very long time and call it a day and train with that. That's what I want to do. I'm not doing it, but that's what I want mentally to do. Just to be done with it. Just so that I don't have to hear people's comments about my body, and I can actually listen to fucking things I have to say. And yes, people on the internet's opinions don't really matter, but at the same time they do when you're trying to grow a business. Yeah, that was my rant about, pro anorexia commentary content coming back to the space. It wasn't really scientific at all, and it wasn't really from a fitness coach's perspective, because as a fitness coach, I think it's wrong. As a fitness coach, I would rather see I would rather see strong over skinny. As a fitness coach, I would rather people understand that they can have a healthy plate and not restrict and blah blah, all of those things that I've said 500 times before, because do as I say, not as I do. As an individual, this culture fucking sucks. It just does. And that's nobody else's fault. That's not the content creator's fault that's doing it. As a fitness coach, yes, there are content creators that absolutely is their fault. Like, as a content creator, blah, blah, blah. But for me and my journey, it's nobody else's fault but mine. I have to fight this demon that is my past history when it comes to fitness. And I have to find things that are enjoyable, that don't have me so focused on numbers, because even, knowing, right, if I'm training again with weights, which is making me be more consistent, because I don't like body weight, I don't like cardio, I don't like that kind of stuff really. But the problem with that is, even knowing that I need to fuel myself to do that thing, I won't do it because I don't really have aesthetic muscle growth, and like growing the amount of weight I'm using doesn't really motivate me either. I've learned, like, PRing doesn't motivate me. The only lift that PRing motivated me for was deadlifts. And I don't have a barbell right now, so I can't really PR a deadlift. Because my deadlift PR was probably triple. No. Yeah, my deadlift PR was triple what I currently have at home on like 2 single dumbbells. So I am going to have to expand my weights, but I'm just getting back into it and getting consistent again. However, that doesn't solve any of my problems mentally. It is a pencil game, and I know that, but I don't know. I'm just really struggling with that, and I wanted to talk about it because I know a lot of other people probably are as well, and it's nobody's fault really. And I'm not saying stop the content. I'm not saying, we should ban all of these creators, because at the end of the day, they have the right to think what they want about the fitness space, and at the end of the day, they have the right to be wrong too. But as an individual, it sucks. I'm struggling a lot right now to not go down that pipeline again, because I know what comes with that pipeline, and it's the shaming, it's the not having any clothing that you can wear comfortably. Not that that matters because I never leave my house, but point being, it's the body shaming, it's the brands starting to make obnoxiously small things in fashionable attire, it's the activewear companies starting to not have your size, it's the public ridicule that comes with just existing in a bigger body, and I don't want to see that come my way again. And yes, that motivates me to keep training, and yes, that motivates me, but it also motivates me to do extreme things because it's people telling me I can't, and I will find extreme ways to get to the point that says, ha, I did it. I always have. I finished 13 classes in 3 months because someone told me I couldn't graduate early. That is how I'm motivated. And that is my own character flaw. Again, nobody's fault, but it's just my little ranty rant as I journey down finding me, realizing all of these things about myself and how they're rooted in some things that are from the toxic culture and the perfection culture that the Mormon church, not to spin off onto the Mormon church again, but that culture that was bred into my family members, that was then bred into me, I'm having to deconstruct and undo. But at the same time, it's part of the reason no contact is becoming a topic of conversation with me, is because I get shamed for just existing. And, I constantly wonder when I'm sitting with my mom and she's people watching and talking shit about all these people when we're at, theme parks and stuff, does she do that about me? Because she's definitely given me a few gifts over the years that seemed like jabs. So, and she comments on my weight almost every time I see her. I don't know. I don't love it. I don't love having to fight this battle again. And it is a battle, but I also know I need to fight it and not fall victim to it again. Or, fuck it. Maybe it's worth falling victim to it again. Does anyone really care? Does it really matter? With everything else, like, being so insane in the world, does it really matter if we are a little scarce on our food, especially when you can afford to be so? I don't know. That was kind of rhetorical. Yes, I know the real answers in the fitness space. That was more just, if I didn't have the fitness coach backing behind my name, I genuinely think I would have already been off the deep end, truthfully. So being a coach has saved me from doing extreme things. And yet everyone wants to tell me that my certifications mean nothing. My brain means nothing. And it's just my body that sells my business. It's fucking annoying, but it is what it is, I guess. But yeah, that was not so much chaos and all. I'm getting into a fuckery a lot lately. I hope I have an episode full of chaos for you in the soon. I should. I don't know. These are just the things that have been on my mind, and I wanted to talk about them. So I appreciate you for being here. If you also have this struggle with the current stage of today's media and the fitness industry, feel free to share your stories below. Share your story of recovery. Share your story of relapse and recovery, whatever it is, I would love to hear your stories because this journey is not easy. It just isn't. Especially, you know, if you have money struggles, remaining in recovery, not saying I have, point being, you know what I mean. Share your stories and we can talk about it together and hopefully support each other through getting through this shitstorm and remain healthy and happy human beings. But for now, that is all. That was a lot of fuckery, and I hope you go get into some chaos.